this episode of Wisdom Teachings, we learn that there is much more to the situation of disclosure than past episodes have revealed. Within the discussion, David Wilcock continues his exposé on the most remarkable events to hit the news in the year of 2015. The discussion proved that the farther we get into the revelations of last year, the more remarkable they seem. Wilcock begins by discussing his experience in Hollywood film production, and sharing how difficult it is to be successful in this industry. As he describes, most Hollywood productions end up losing significantly with regard to overall profit. This may have been one of the reasons why the Illuminati cabal launched their extended PR campaign within the world of film and entertainment. It is this reasoning which we intend to discuss, along with the various results of this campaign within media. We start things off with further revelations from the previously discussed Sony hacks. Sony hacks abound. In my view, this episode revealed some of the most amazing evidence of government manipulation in media to date. In the last few discussions, the series covered the connection between the Rand Corporation and Sony as well as numerous other media companies which are controlled by the military-industrial complex. Within this discussion, we are actually able to read the evidence in the form of email correspondence from Sony regarding the creation of various media productions. Before we get into this subject, however, we will learn just what these emails represent. For these details we turn to two websites. The first of these comes from the site of the well-known publisher, Variety. WikiLeaks has added thousands more hacked Sony Pictures Entertainment emails to its searchable database. WikiLeaks made the announcement Thursday in a posting on its Twitter account. The move came 2 weeks after WikiLeaks disclosed that it had published 30,287 documents and 173,132 emails stemming from last winter's cyber attack on Sony Pictures Entertainment. WikiLeaks editor-in-chief Julian Assange said in an April 16 statement that information was newsworthy, adding, "It belongs in the public domain. WikiLeaks will ensure it stays there." The hack was reportedly initiated by North Korea in response to the studio's decision to release the comedy The Interview, centering on an assassination attempt on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. As a result, embarrassing correspondence between top executives and producers became public and helped lead to the ouster of studio chief Amy Pascal and her being replaced by TriStar chief Tom Rothman. Sony Pictures strongly opposed the release of the material in an April 16 statement. "We vehemently disagree with WikiLeaks' assertion that this material belongs in the public domain and will continue to fight for the safety, security and privacy of our company and its more than 6,000 employees." The April 16 disclosure by WikiLeaks included the revelation that Ben Affleck had attempted to conceal his slave-owning ancestors from the PBS documentary series Finding Your Roots. Affleck subsequently apologized for having done so. As we may remember, we have the alliance hacking into the Sony database and making off with a large amount of information, including our evidence of interest. We will also remember that this particular hack revealed the foul play which took place within the production of the movie, The Interview. It is important to note that theft of information is considered unethical. However, when that information directly pertains to the plans of a company to manipulate the public for monetary gain, the situation changes. If such information reveals that crimes and offenses against the people are continually being committed, then we may have an obligation to examine such information in order to stop these crimes from continuing. David Wilcock also makes the point that once any information hits the web, there is no real way to get it back, and that since this information is already out in the open, it can only help us to learn how to prevent the injustices which Rand and Sony have committed. We have previously learned about how Sony Entertainment and the Rand Corporation have colluded together in order to create various forms of propaganda. Let's see what other details we can uncover. The next article comes from the website, greenleaf.com. WikiLeaks reveals Sony's hidden ties to Washington. The Sony archives show that behind the scenes this is an influential corporation, with ties to the White House. There are almost 100 U.S. government email addresses in the archive, with an ability to impact laws and policies, and with connections to the U.S. military-industrial complex, WikiLeaks said. According to WikiLeaks, Sony Pictures CEO Michael Lynton is on the board of trustees of the RAND Corporation, which the whistleblower website described as an organization specializing in research and development for the United States military and intelligence sector. WikiLeaks said its newly released trove of documents brings to light the flow of contacts and information between Sony's U.S. subsidiary and RAND. This ranges from Sony setting up celebrity visits to special events for the military research company, to RAND offering advice to Sony Pictures on how to handle blowback from North Korea over the film, The Interview. In total, the trove includes more than 30,000 documents, collectively dubbed by WikiLeaks as the Sony Archives. The documents were first leaked online late last year by hackers. Following this article, David Wilcock makes the point that this information shows a situation which is completely contrary to what media is supposed to be. When we watch television or movies, many of us expect to be watching nothing more than pure entertainment. However, this information from WikiLeaks tells a completely different story. Here we see that Michael Lynton, the CEO of Sony, is on the board of trustees of the RAND Corporation. As Wilcock states, this situation basically represents monopolization of media, and flies in the face of virtually every antitrust law that has ever been written. As many may know, antitrust laws exist to ensure that all businesses operate under clear and fair standards which are most beneficial to the consumer. However, this is most definitely not what Sony and RAND seem to have in mind. It is this situation between these colluding corporations which can easily be defined as crime. And it is more than likely that the criminal nature of these actions is the true reason why Sony vehemently disagrees with WikiLeaks' assertion regarding the need for public oversight of such activities. It is understood that the determination of criminality of this type of monopolization are up to the judgment of the courts. However, I cannot see any just court acquitting any party who deliberately conspires to manipulate the people for selfish gain. It is clear that Sony did not want this information which WikiLeaks acquired to be made public. They give the reason that it is a violation of privacy. However, this is not likely the only reason behind the objection. It is a given that a criminal, or criminal organization, will not typically reveal their own guilt if they intend to continue their criminal behavior. In order to investigate any crime, private information must be examined. And any functional criminal justice system with integrity to speak of will thoroughly examine such situations in order to determine if crime has been committed. However, this did not seem to be the situation at the time these hacks came to the surface. This is why the hacks and WikiLeaks revelations were necessary. Justice was not being served, and the very system charged with handling the would-be investigation was showing to be an accessory to the crime itself. Taking a closer look. Up until this point, we have only been able to speak on the possibility of foul play within the collusion between RAND and Sony. Though that possibility was known to be very strong, given the amount of propaganda we have clearly been able to see, it was only partially proven. However, the details within these Sony emails may dispel all doubt that crime has taken place. Here is WikiLeaks on the subject. RAND's politics aside, a can't-miss experience in Santa Monica. RAND's politics aside, a can't-miss experience in Santa Monica, RAND. RAND's politics aside, a can't-miss experience in Santa Monica, view in browser. We're pleased to have the current director of the NSA join us for what will be a dynamic day of discussions. Admiral Michael S. Rogers, Commander of U.S. Cyber Command and Director of the National Security Agency / Central Security Service. Visit our website to see a full list of the other speakers who will be joining us. The number of participants is limited. Purchase your passes today. Politics aside. A portion of the cost of each pass is a tax-deductible contribution to RAND. Your participation in Politics Aside helps support RAND research. Sponsored by RAND is non-profit, non-partisan, and committed to the public interest. RAND Corporation. 1776 Main Street, Santa Monica, California 9040132208. RAND registered as a registered trademark. Privacy statement, email politicsaside@rand.org to unsubscribe. This doesn't at all look like business as usual for any company who produces simple entertainment. Upon seeing this email, many are probably curious as to why one of the largest entertainment companies in the country is meeting with the NSA, the agency we all know to be guilty of spying on a good majority of the planet, for an entire day. We can clearly see propagandistic films and media such as the interview produced by Sony, as well as numerous other sources. Combine this knowledge with the fact that Sony is likely gathering information from the NSA as well, and we have a multi-level collusion in media for the sake of manipulating the common population with strategic precision. As David Wilcock states, the profitability of a media company has nothing to do with spying unless there are clear ulterior motives which these media companies hold. Wilcock goes on to explain that there are virtually no Hollywood productions which oppose the cabal in any way. When we think of such revealing movies as Andrew Wakefield's Vaxxed, or Amy Berg's An Open Secret, which respectively document the dangers of unchecked vaccine manufacturers, and the epidemic of pedophilia in Hollywood, and how these films seem to fall flat, it becomes clear that films which oppose the cabal, Illuminati, never make it to the big screen in Hollywood. This is not accidental, but by design. It is a monopolization of the industry, much like we see in every profitable industry the cabal controls. In short, those who have opposed them tend to fail, while those who conspire with them tend to succeed. Let's take a look at another email. Here we have evident correspondence between Sony and the RAND Corporation on the exact subject of changing journalistic publications to the advantage of government image. FW, Snowden Final Draft. From, Vile, Leah. Sent, Tuesday, May 13, 2014, 12 p.m. To, Garen, Jean. C.C., Klein, Megan, Kaplan, Todd, Sipkins, Charles. Subject, Snowden Final Draft. Privileged and confidential. Jean. A few comments. 1. In the first sentence of the second paragraph, delete the phrase illegal spying and either leave it simply as operations or replace it with intelligence gathering so the clause would read U.S. Government S intelligence gathering operations. 2. In the second sentence of the second paragraph, delete the phrase misuse of power and replace it with actions or activities so that it would read the NSS actions or the NSS activities. I wonder in his quote whether we want to have him say it is a political film. That's really more of a PR point, so up to you guys, and I suspect since it is his own quote Greenwald will feel strongly. Please also ensure that the use of quotes from the reviews is an accurate portrayal of what was said. Because they are excerpts, we want to make sure that there is no change in the meaning etc. and that the attributions are correct. From, Garen, Jean. Sent, Tuesday, May 13, 2014, 10:42 a.m. To, Vile, Leah. C.C., Klein, Megan, Kaplan, Todd. Subject, Snowden Final Draft. Hi Leah, we thought you might want to review attached before it goes out to the media. Greenwald has been given creative input on this release. As a matter of fact, it cannot go out without his final approval. Please let us know what you think. Ideally, as Greenwald is on a world press tour right now, we'd like to announce this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. Thanks as always, Jean. We can see that this email was sent from personnel at RAND, and is advising Sony on an article on Edward Snowden's revelations. This person at RAND is basically dictating to Sony how to best give the NSA a positive image in the eyes of the reader, basically fashioning the opinions of the public for private interests. As Wilcock points out, there is not supposed to be a hierarchical arrangement which links government, military, and entertainment together. What do the results of the nation's spying agency have to do with Hollywood production and publications? In my view, this is downright Orwellian, and has no place within a country which boasts the statutes of freedom and equality. If people aren't even allowed to think for themselves without being unknowingly manipulated by the entertainment industry, I can hardly consider such a situation free. We see the Rand Corporation and the NSA basically using Sony as their own personal advertisement agency as they dictate Sony's publications to them. These emails prove that the military-industrial complex is manipulating and censoring journalism, the news, and numerous other avenues of the entertainment industry. David Wilcock makes a note that he appreciates Gaia because he can say whatever he wants on the network. He also says that in sharing all of the secrets of Hollywood and the mainstream, he will most likely never be able to work there again. At this point, we've proven that Sony Entertainment is taking orders from the NSA and the Rand Corporation, but what exactly is this salvage plan of the cabals mentioned in the title? More schemes from the mainstream. It has been discussed in past weeks that the cabal has been slowly disseminating their own version of reality to the public. This is so that if they find their situation deteriorating to the point of imminent defeat, they can use their partial disclosure script to distract the public and cast themselves in a positive light, changing the story to their own advantage. On this subject of disclosure in the Wisdom Teachings series, the cabal's numerous nuggets of truth have been various in scope and significance. In contrast, this episode showed that the cabal is leaving little to the imagination for anyone who is paying attention. The next disclosure of interest comes to us from the website, Gizmodo.com, and discusses the exotic technology of cloaking devices. We've just developed a portable cloak-like device. If you're a non-magical being, you might think your chances of becoming invisible are slim to nil. But don't jump to conclusions just yet. Researchers are now claiming to have developed a portable system that can make small objects, like your keys or pet lizard, disappear from sight. The key to real-life invisibility lies in clever optical tricks that bend light around an object, shielding it from detection. In principle, such technology has only been demonstrated for very tiny objects, but now, a group of researchers from the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology say they've developed a scaled-up system that can be ported around and used for classroom demonstrations. When the kit researchers want to cloak an object, they place it inside a hollow metal cylinder coated with acrylic paint, which diffusely reflects light. That metal tube is then embedded inside a light-scattering PDMS block. If the time it takes light to travel through the block is just the right proportion of the time it takes light to travel through the cloak becomes invisible. Or so the researchers say. The first actual demonstration of this technology will take place on May 13, according to a press release. As Gizmodo reveals, scientists just developed a technology which has the ability to bend light around objects so that they become invisible. However, as we have heard, this technology is not at all limited to small objects within metal tubes. Wilcock explains the likelihood that this technology exists on a grand scale, and that the ships we hear of within the secret space program commonly use this cloaking technology to mask their operations from view. He tells of how there could be major thoroughfares in the sky full of ships and we would not be able to tell. It may be that the cabal is pushing this information of cloaking technology out to the mainstream so as to prime the public for their PR salvage plan. The discussion moves to the Avengers movie series, and how this series seems to have numerous soft disclosures of the various technologies the cabal possesses. David Wilcock mentions the testimonies of Dr. Pete Peterson on how the floating aircraft carrier depicted in these movies was almost exactly the way the actual carrier appears. It is very likely that this cloaking technology is used to mask these carriers despite their massive size, according to Wilcock. A comical attempt at redemption. The next subject of interest was extremely strange to hear about. This involved a PR stunt that was so far out in left field that one would have to see in order to believe. To see this actual attempt made, at first made me angry, but afterward, it just makes me laugh. Due to the excessive amount of propaganda we see coming from Hollywood studios in modern times, it is no surprise that the cabal has major influence within this industry. Consequently, it is in their best interests to make this industry as profitable as possible while spreading their own version of reality through propagandistic productions. It wasn't until various hacks that the reality behind this shady business began to come forward. One of these shady dealings involved an attempted mass publication of a comic book, along with motions to trademark the word Illuminati so that no one else could use the word. The following article comes from bleedingcool.com, and gives details on this little PR stunt. Marvel to publish an Illuminati comic? The Illuminati are the secret society that rule the world. Originally the Bavarian Illuminati of 1776, the phrase has reoccurred over the years, more popularly used now to describe groups like the Bilderberg Group, the idea of the New World Order, made up of the most powerful people, controlling us in an undemocratic fashion. Possibly lizards. In the Marvel Universe, the Illuminati are a group invented by Brian Bendis that comprise the cleverest, most powerful good people in the Marvel world, state leaders, great thinkers, great inspirers. They were originally Mr. Fantastic, Iron Man, Professor X, Namor, Black Bolt, and Doctor Strange, though their membership has changed over the years, with Medusa, Beast, Black Panther, Captain America, and Amadeus Cho, Medusa, Yellow Jacket, Captain Britain and Doc Green Hulk joining their ranks. Well, last week Marvel registered the trademark for Illuminati for comic books, printed periodicals in the field of comic book stories and artwork. This usually means that Marvel are planning a comic book of the same name and are getting the trademark in early, or that the TV/movie/games wing of the publisher is pursuing something along those lines and they want to shore up the comic book name rights against anyone who fancies trying it on, or someone is proposing a legal challenge. That's right. An Illuminati comic. Keep in mind, this article from Bleeding Cool was published on May 5, only 4 days after Sony added such damned email evidence to their database on May 1. You can't beat them for quick, desperate responses, I guess. We see these Kabbalists taking original characters from other comics and successful movies, and conflating them into one series for the sake of saving their own image. As Wilcock points out, in order to create a Marvel-based movie, you first need a comic series. With this in mind, it seems likely that the Cabal wanted to trademark the name Illuminati not only because they intended to create a movie series, but also for the sake of copyrighting their Illuminati name. So what's the significance of the copyright? When any material is copyrighted, it means that the owner has sole rights over the copyrighted material. At that point, no one else can use that name without the Cabal's expressed consent, which I can't see them giving to anyone except their own members. This would mean that no publisher, no documentary, no blog, and no other party whatsoever could use their name in any production, as this would legally be considered copyright infringement. This act of damage control would be their own special attempt at information control. Fortunately, the fact that this article was published last May tells me that this comic didn't really do too well in stores, and I can't see Marvel going through the entire process of creating a movie just to lose millions when it tanks at the box office. One thing to note. Most of us would obviously find this attempt at image management ironic. This is due to the fact that much of the real Illuminati belongs in prison. They have shown themselves to be chronic liars, cheats, and manipulators, and yet they are attempting to portray themselves as geniuses and saints. The bottom line is that if people are truly good, they don't need PR. Truly good people are PR, and have no need for stunts like this. The part about this stunt that irked me at first was the fact that it demonstrates just how little the Cabal contributes to anyone but themselves. The Cabal, Illuminati, can't seem to do anything on their own, and seem to require the creativity of others to do whatever it is they aim to do. We see them buying themes and franchises, buying characters, buying popularity, but when it comes down to it, all they themselves have is a load of worthless monopoly money. With regard to newness and creativity, they don't have anything to add. This is the likely reason why Hollywood has turned to producing nothing but unnecessary remakes and Luciferian propaganda. The part about this that I find so funny is how detached this Cabal reveals themselves to be from the rest of humanity. We see them trying so desperately to win the approval of the people they want to kill and enslave, but no matter how hard they try, it remains clearly obvious that they don't know what they're doing at this point. I can't help but be reminded of the Clinton campaign, where no matter how many selfies they take, No matter how many speeches they give, debate results they rig, or approval ratings are twisted to their own advantage, it is painfully obvious that this campaign is destined for failure without millions in bribe money being tossed at it. Instead of receiving their much-desired admiration, the cabal seems to have become either an object of hate, or a laughingstock in the eyes of most people. I'm not a fan of the hate, but I can understand the anger many people feel. At the end of the day, there seems to be nothing more than complete confusion among the cabal. They seem to be utterly clueless as to what people value in life, what people want, and haven't managed to catch on to the growing ability of the people to see beyond blatant fiction. The cabal has been so good at controlling a sleeping population, but in their hubris, they have completely missed the fact that a good percentage of the population is wide awake, and is on to them. They don't realize that we can't be bought with cheap gimmicks and flowery words. They don't realize that when they are brought to trial for their crimes against humanity, they will be dealing with a new breed of human, one who is immune to virtually every trick they've ever learned. That day is coming, and no comic book or campaign gimmick is going to change the fact. The film noir reboot. Upon seeing the subject matter within this episode, I was glad that entertainment was being addressed in this way. For a long while now, I have felt disappointed in the entertainment industry as a whole. I have avoided entertainment simply because the popular side of this industry seems to be nothing more than depressing, fatalistic propaganda weighted toward the advantage of elitist, global domination. Personally, I don't find it very appealing to be attemptedly manipulated every 5 minutes during such entertainment. To give a few examples of my reasoning on the sentiment, I have had the feeling for some time that the constant use of bass drops sound effects, as well as the commonly used, low-pitch, flat-wave distortion sound effect used in films were more than just sound effects. This also brings into question the fatalism within the movie titles, as well as the overall depressing soundtracks which constantly decrease in frequency, opposite the natural frequency increase of the planet and of humanity. As we may have heard, sound carries energy as well. Due to the way these effects cause me to feel internally, combined with their constant use in every big-budget movie, causes me to question whether or not these represent some type of energetic attack on the audience. These effects are yet another reason why I have avoided such entertainment. When considering the subject of dark, depressing entertainment, there are a few examples which come to mind. One of the most significant of these movies was the 2010 film, Tron Legacy. This film seemed entertaining at first. However, soon after considering all of the implications it seemed to hold, this movie became much more than mere entertaining. Considering what we know about the cabal, it may be very revealing to observe the trends depicted in within this film. One point to note. When I speak about the concept of race, I am not speaking of an actual concept or the general appearance of an entire demographic. I am speaking about the fictitious concept of race which has been imposed upon the human race by the cabal in order to divide us and to make us feel afraid to unite as one. When I speak of this concept, it is for the sake of undoing the damage that the cabal has done to all of us. Though to undo the effects of their numerous lies and manipulation, we must first examine and understand them. Here are a number of my own observations on Tron Legacy, along with the possible implications which were intended within the film's presentation. Interesting observations from Tron Legacy. The main character has excessive, inherited wealth, the legacy of his father. In the movie, we have Sam Flynn, depicted as the general cabal member, with wealth he didn't earn, a huge company he didn't build, and far more resources than wisdom. The main cast includes Caucasian males, the Aryan stereotype, with one woman who is a programmable automaton. As we have seen, the Kabbalist group mostly consists of chauvinistic, Nazi-esque racists. These people believe that their trait of light skin is one of several traits which signify their superiority over all ethnicities. This partially in reference to Plato's writings on Atlantis. Within the Krishnas, it is suggested that Atlantis was largely populated by ETs who had very fair skin while the rest of humanity consisted of various darker shades. Consequently, the cabal believes themselves to be superior partially due to their complexion. They also believe that women are nothing more than puppets. They actually believe this about all those subservient, but women are considered the lesser of the sexes. They use women as tools for pleasure and as programmable blank slates upon which they can apply any personality they wish. This is much of what was uncovered from Project MKUltra. The main character is overprivileged and above the law. The movie starts out with a bike police chase during which Sam Flynn gets away without any issue. This is followed by a scene in which Sam breaks into his own software company, steals a brand new program they just designed, and makes a daring and entertaining escape. We see him get arrested, but he immediately gets out of jail. There is even one scene which takes place within the digital world where Sam gives his light cycle away to a poor man. At first, it looked like a gift, but it was only for the purpose of framing the poor man so that the police would go after this random person instead of Sam. One of the reasons the cabal thinks they can do anything they want is because they believe that everything belongs to them. This includes people as well. They believe that the law does not apply to them because they are supreme over all. They also believe that it is completely fine for the poor and innocent to pay for the cabal's, crimes while they themselves escape untouched. The only people of color in the movie are completely silent. As mentioned before, the cabal believes that they come from superiority stock and that the rest of us represent various degrees of inferiority. Not to prejudge differences based upon anyone's skin color, but these are the beliefs of this criminal organization. Personally, I like the variety we have as the human race, and I invite everyone to have this appreciation for self and for all others. There is one exception to this silent characteristic. There was one woman who was a servant of the digital system, a programmable automaton, who had one line. Her words were, "He's different." This seems to be a message to the audience that the cabal is different than the rest of us programmable automatons, and that they deserve to be given special treatment. This makes sense in a movie, but in real life, it is completely twisted in my view. All of the commoners and poor are slaves who are forced to fight each other in the games. This trend made for nice entertainment, but this is quite literally the exact situation the cabal has deliberately created in the real world. We see in the movie that the grandiose and exciting game scenes are filled with big choreography, acrobatics, and special effects. As entertaining as this is, we may want to realize that this is exactly how the cabal views war here in the real world. We may realize that this group is full of psychopaths who care very little about the lives of anyone but themselves. However, this movie seems to portray not just a carelessness for the loss of human life, but that this group actually gets a certain thrill from the suffering and death they cause. The main characters have supernatural protection in the form of Tron. Sam Flynn comes from a life of privilege beyond that of anyone else in the movie. To add to this privilege, Sam seems to have a supernatural guardian who gives him special treatment after realizing who he is. Tron basically makes sure that the group of heroes in the movie get out of the digital world safely, while everyone else is left to fend for themselves. We may note that Tron calls these privileged heroes users. This may have a double meaning, one referring to computer users, and the other referring to those who manipulate others for their own advantage. The entire world is dark except for Kevin Flynn, who bears much resemblance to Lucifer. In the movie, Kevin Flynn is the creator of the program world. Only he has the ability to create and to change the world in the unique way which he does. Kevin is distinguished from the rest of the programs because of his dress in many different scenes. He is robed in light while the rest of the characters only have partial light shining from their technical-looking attire. It is known among the programs people that Kevin came from the sky from another place and is unique among everyone else. In this way he symbolizes a Lucifer-like character and serves as a source of knowledge for the whole civilization of programs. The villain, CLU, wants equal rights for everyone. Within this movie, the villain CLU is excessively insane, malevolent, and bent on revenge against Kevin Flynn. Throughout the movie, he is obsessed with hunting Kevin down and exacting his vengeance, but Kevin is too cunning. Toward the end of the movie, we find out that Clue's plan is to escape the digital world into the physical world, which was a completely improper situation as the movie portrayed. It is at this time when we see the twisted views of the cabal with regard to human rights. As CLU gives his speech to the crowds of digital people, he states his goal of giving all of the programs, people the same rights as the privileged humans, while the position of the heroes of the movie is that only they deserve exclusive privilege. To them, it is improper to give their privilege to mere programs, and this makes sense for the context of the movie. However, this is not at all just a movie plot. This is how the real cabal sees the rest of humanity. To them, we are the programs, and they are the sole and rightful recipients of privilege. To them, equal rights activists are actually evil. When Sam and Cora leave, the entire digital world and all of the people are destroyed. At the end of the movie, through various events, Kevin Flynn is unable to return to the real world, and Sam, the son, and his female program, Cora, have to leave him behind. After these two leave, there is an explosion which creates a shockwave that destroys everything and everyone within the digital world. The final scene of the digital world includes Sam Flynn robed in light just as his father was. In essence, this signifies Sam's continuing the legacy of his father, who happens to represent Lucifer. As we have heard from Wilcock and various sources, the cabal has planned in the past a retreat for all of their personnel from the planet. After this retreated, they intended to destroy the surface population through a nuclear attack or by some other means. This would have been their way of starting the Earth off from scratch and depopulating the planet as they have wanted to for a long while. Thankfully for us, none of this was ever authorized. Tron Legacy, by my observation, was basically an advertisement of cabal beliefs and standards for living. It was communicated in the usual way, which is through fiction, in an altered state of reality in which their twisted ideas make sense. However, in real life where humanity actually hold value, none of this ideology seems healthy by any stretch of the imagination. I find it unfortunate to see the entirety of Hollywood cinema become nothing more than remakes and blatant Illuminati eye candy. This goes to show that the cabal has absolutely no creativity to speak of. There may be creative minds among them, but if there are, they seem to be able to produce nothing other than alternative versions of the films others have already made. As many may have learned, it is nearly impossible to be successful in entertainment at all without the consent of these cabal gangsters, and once an actor has consent, the only material they are able to produce promotes self-destruction and overt negativity. These are a few of the unfortunate reasons why I no longer bother with Hollywood or television. Polarization, our own global mitosis. Presently, we see numerous significant events occurring all around us. Some of these events appear to be extremely positive in nature, while others seem destructive. The fact is that both of these occurrences are taking place simultaneously. I have written on this subject in past articles. However, to gain greater understanding of these occurrences, we will talk on the subject for a moment. As mentioned in the past, the law of one text states that the end of each major cycle, which lasts 25,000 years, is commonly accompanied by a major shift in evolution and consciousness for all life on the Earth. Among the numerous changes that are to take place according to the text, there is to be a major split on the planet between those who choose to follow the path of service to self, and those who choose the path of service to others. Here is a passage from the Law of One on the subject. 20.27 Questioner, I will make this assumption, then, if maximum efficiency had been achieved in this 25,000-year period, the entities would have polarized either toward service toward self or service to others, one or the other. This would have then made them harvestable at the end of that 25,000-year period to either service to self or service to others type of fourth density, in which case they would have had to move to another planet because this one would have been in third density for 50 more thousand years. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. Let us untangle your assumption, which is complex and correct in part. The original desire is that entities seek and become one. If entities can do this in a moment, they may go forward in a moment, and, thus, were this to occur in a major cycle, indeed, the third density planet would be vacated at the end of that cycle. It is, however, more toward the median or mean, shall we say, of third density developments throughout the one infinite universe, that there be a small harvest after the first cycle, the remainder having significantly polarized, the second cycle having a much larger harvest, the remainder being even more significantly polarized, the third cycle culminating the process and the harvest being completed. As the text describes, the end of each cycle brings an end period and an opportunity to progress to the next density. Presently, we are in the third density and are transitioning into fourth. In this particular cycle, each of us must make a choice of the polarity we want to pursue. In one direction is the negative path, service to self, and in the other path is the positive, service to others path. Both of these are available to anyone who is willing to put in the effort to achieve them. According to the texts, there is also a third path for those who fail to choose during the 25,000-year cycle. This path involves remaining in the third density for another 25,000 years until the soul is able to choose which path they will follow. This path also requires all souls who fail to choose to reincarnate on another world, as the earth will no longer be inhabitable for third density life, according to the text. As we may have observed, our universe is fractal in nature, and the principles which we find to be constant tend to exist on multiple levels of scales. Take this subject of the self-sorting of humanity for instance. This sorting of the Earth's population based upon polarity is very similar to concept of cellular mitosis. In short, mitosis is the process by which cells divide and reproduce asexually. During this process, there is one particularly interesting occurrence which happens just before cellular division. As we can observe, just before cellular division takes place, there is a reorganization of the internal anatomy of the cell. This reorganization occurs just before the final separation of the cellular anatomy into two groups of cellular material. It is after this separation that the cellular wall elongates, and the cell divides. This seems to correspond very closely with the description of polarization we presently see on the Earth between those on the positive side and those who are more negative and destructive. As we choose our collective paths here on Earth, we become much like the chromosomes within the cell. We choose our collective side of the equation according to our own preference, and once the collective choice is made, whether consciously or unconsciously, the actual separation takes place. This will mean that the end of this cycle will likely result in a bifurcations of sorts, and may actually result in the creation two separate Earths on two different timelines. Note, it should be known that according to the text, the negative polarity will not actually be here on the Earth. As I understand it, the Earth will only ascend to positive fourth density, and those who are on the negative path will go to a negative, fourth density planet for their service to self-experiment. This will be after these people experience their own cataclysmic, world-ending event. Though, as always, I would encourage each of us to do our own study on the matter. With all of this in mind, it becomes fairly evident that each of us has our own choices to make. If we truly want to progress, it is important for us to choose in which direction we want to go. Will it be a path of self-service, or the one of service to all? According to the law of one, both are paths designed to teach us the value of love. Though the negative path is full of pain and hardship, some may still choose it. Choosing our own trajectory. As we progress to ascension, it is important for us to keep in mind that it is we who are creating each step of this journey. We are changing the world for the better and at the same time, redefining what it means to be human. In all of this we are authorizing the further evolution of the planet as whole, giving permission to the universe to allow the imminent solar event to commence. If this is true, then all of this is happening as we speak. By all of what nature demonstrates on the microscopic level, it is already taking place on a grand scale. We see the world moving in two different directions with greater and greater intensity in both of these, and from this observation, it seems evident that the cabal is on the losing end. Among the few who will receive the negative ascension, there are to be thousands of years of suffering and seemingly endless labor just to get by on the negative path. However, whether or not a soul manages to achieve the negative ascension, they still have in store for them a karmic balancing that no sane person would ever choose. Yet this destructive experience waits for those who choose service to self, as well as those who need the balancing otherwise, according to the law of one. For those of us who have chosen the positive path, another experience waits for us. We have for us a continuing journey of positive self-discovery, of resolution and harmonization, of learning of the endless divinity that resides within, and of the unity that exists among all things. The possibilities are infinite, according to the law of one. It is difficult to describe the boundless possibility that awaits us beyond our present experience. In my view, this is all the more reason to contribute in even greater ways to the end goal of our progression and evolution. There are no limitations to the positive contributions we can make to our ultimate ascension, and the shift many of us are waiting to see. However, we can take heart in the fact that every positive act we commit is bringing us ever closer to this monumental event. Every loving thought, word, and deed, every hope, every quality moment spent in meditation brings this event all the closer to the now moment. We will very soon experience this awakening. Let's press forward, and see it through to the finish. To see the video, Wisdom Teachings, Illuminati Salvage Plan. You must have an account with Gaia TV in order to enjoy these videos. Go to www.blueavians.com, and you will be able to sign up for 1 month of access for 99 cents.
For additional information, please visit our website, theeventiscomingsoon.com, and our Facebook page at facebook.com/theeventiscomingsoon, your alternative news source for disclosure and the event. Make sure you search our library of videos. You may have missed some very important information and intel. Remember to subscribe to receive